Joy Harjo was the 23rd Poet Laureate of the United States and first Native American to hold the position, and joining her today is Michaela Goade, a Caldecott Medal-winning New York Times best-selling artist. Post-lunch. Congratulations on your soon-to-be book, Remember, which combines Joy's poetry, Michaela's art. How did this partnership come about? Were you friends before? How did you meet?
We met through the project. We met through the project, and what was really great is I got to help select the artist.
Oh, so you were chosen.
Yes, she's a chosen one. Yeah.
So the book encourages the reader to better understand their origins in the world around them. How do you do that personally?
It's an ongoing process about being human, becoming human. We're all on that journey, one to understand ourselves together, and in that journey you realize that ourselves is these plants and each, we're all connected. We got a good lesson in that with COVID and internet and cell phones, all of that. Ultimately we are all connected.
So one reviewer said the book is comforting for children, and it hoped that it would spark a dialogue about the natural world and family stories among adults. What dialogues do you hope to come from this book?
I think for children to think about who and where they come from. I try to put my own personal experience into the book in the hopes that it would really resonate and encourage others to do the same with their histories, and to think about land as central to identity as Native people and as non-Native people as well.
What did you learn from each other during the process?
It's kind of a conversation, if you think about it. There was a conversation going on between words and place, and a connection with places, connection with places. And I learned, well, I knew that she was a wonderful illustrator, but what it takes to be a good illustrator, she listens.
Yeah, and as the artist, it's always a true gift when you get a text from an author where they leave a lot of space for the artist to come in and also tell their own story, and then together you kind of create something new. And I didn't know Joy personally before this book, so she's like, legend in the literature and specifically Native American literature world. So to work with her was a true joy and a gift. And and I got to learn too that she already had personal connections to actually my community in Southeast Alaska.
So you both got to leave yourself on the page. Well, identity and belonging are big themes in your works, forces that were largely disrupted during the pandemic. How have you emerged from isolation, and how can art and literature help people connect again?
Well, to create art, you have to be isolated in a sense. And I think the pandemic happened. We were all isolated, and it gave us a timeout moment to really consider who we are as creative beings. Everyone is. We're all making our own life stories. We're living in a creative dynamic of storytelling, what I call the story field. And we need to, in order to know who we are, we have to unplug, look at art, listen to poetry, make it ourselves.
So do you feel like the creation of art can connect people because they all understand that isolationism?
I wouldn't call it isolationism. I would call it connecting, connecting with eternal forces of beauty and knowledge.
I mean, you both explore a sense of place in your art. How do you engage all of your senses?
I like to call it or think of it as placemaking. It's a really wonderful experience when I get to do it from the place where I grew up, in Southeast Alaska. It's just so fun to engage when you're both writing and illustrating. Just think of the basics of the five senses, but then when you're doing the art, what can you say that's not said already in the text, and what can you communicate that just brings new layers of meaning, and to really try to transport people. And then I always try to remember to help. The goal is that I want to make people care. Because change happens when people care. So if they really do think more about where they are and who they come from and their connections, hopefully they'll care more and fight to protect it.
Do you ever visit a foreign place, somewhere you've never been before, and feel an instant connection? I mean, why do you think that is?
I have a lot of reasons, but I'm not going to say them on camera. But I remember standing in Cairo, and there's people, you know, horn language, honking horns. It's an art over there.
Yeah.
But I remember standing there thinking, this is me. There's something about it. I was far away from Mvskoke Nation in Oklahoma, but there was something. It wasn't the horns. It was just being in Cairo, Egypt, and the culture there. There was something that resonated. Now, why or how? I think the story field is dynamic. We see that. We see it every day. We use it every day. And we have, just as we have familial ancestors and connections, we have earth ancestors, poetry ancestors. There's, you know, we're multi-dimensional beings. We can't see all of who we are or who we've been, in a sense.
So how often do your projects turn out to be something completely different than you had in mind from the beginning?
Often. I don't know. That creative process, you never really know when you're starting out what you're embarking on. I never know what a picture book is going to look like until I'm almost all the way done, and oh, there it is. And it's really a conversation, you know, especially when you get to work on books with deep subject matter, when it's talking about the land and your connections. You're doing all that work internally, and you just get to go and explore all these fun little worlds inside yourself as well. And so that means it's a conversation, and you never really know what it's going to look like until
Sounds
it's done.
like therapy through
It
art.
is, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Joy, you are a former Poet Laureate and the first Native American to hold that position. What were some of your favorite parts about the job?
Oh man, well a lot of it was on Zoom. My Poet Laureateship came at a time of much change and trauma and drama and so on, but it was, you know, I felt, and I still feel like I was I was the one holding the door open for poetry, and poetry had, you know, the numbers of people who went to poetry grew exponentially because during COVID. I have so many good memories, and good memories like in my community and all over. I don't know where to start. So much of it was online.
And we need poems more than ever. I mean, how did that influence your work, or did it?
It happened during COVID, so I was not out running around like I am right now. I'm traveling extensively right now, but during COVID, I got a new music album done. I got an anthology done. I got 2 books done.
Wow.
During COVID.
Prolific.
I knew a lot of artists who shut down and said, all I could do was watch Netflix. But for me, because I had been traveling even before the Poet Laureateship, because I was doing what I always did during the Poet Laureateship, is that it allowed me time at home to stop and to listen and to create.
And Michaela, you are a much renowned artist as well, the winner of the Caldecott Medal and a #1 New York Times bestseller. How did the Caldecott Medal influence your journey? And has it opened any doors for you? Anything special?
Yes, the Caldecott Medal was a huge surprise, and it was a large gift as well. It has opened a lot of doors, opportunities. Mostly it's been a wonderful experience in just experience and then in security, and you know, it's a competitive industry, picture books and publishing in general, and so just to have that security that you're on the right path and you'll hopefully be able to get more contracts in the future. But of course it also has, you know, double-edged sword. It makes you more aware of more eyes and more attention, and it can be a little nerve-wracking at times, but I also know that it also helped open doors for other underrepresented voices and helped hopefully get more contracts for other Indigenous authors and illustrators, which is really
good in your bio,
what
for
it's
sure.
about.
Yeah. So we're living in a time of great challenges, including many in the education world. Joy, you said that in times of chaos, there are frequently fresh answers beneath the surface. What are the answers that you've uncovered in these challenging times?
I think I just uncover more details to the questions. You know, I'm beginning to think that that we're all in the answer. We all have little parts of the answer.
You want better answers? Get better questions.
Yeah.
I like that.
Something like that, I guess.
Your art moves frequently between physical world and the spiritual one. Do you fear our society has become a little bit too literal?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the difference between sitting down and writing poetry or writing a letter, or what it takes to sit down and do that versus texting.
Mm-hmm.
And the texting becomes very abbreviated and very literal. You don't see much metaphor. That's one thing I've heard. I've been to language conferences, and I heard like Navajo language people, I've heard it from Hawaiian language people, Mvskoke language people saying that we have lost our sense of metaphor. Well, what does metaphor do? But it deepens connection. Like saying, okay, here's a meaning here, but here's a doorway, and maybe there's 100 meanings, and they're all stacked on each other, and that's what a metaphor can do. And we are losing that in our communications until it comes to poetry, or then there we are back again. And I think we thrill by it. It's nourishment. Metaphorical language gives us mental nourishment and spiritual nourishment, and versus something that's just flatly literal and often rhetorical.
Just business, not no flowers to your language.
That's right.
So what role can artists like yourselves play in helping people through challenging times like recessions and extreme weather?
I mean, art's so important. It gives voice to all of our inner worlds, and it visually shares how connected we all are. And like what Joy was just saying, that's never been more important than right now. There are so many ways to be connected, I guess, on the surface, but deeply connected, I'm not as sure. I think art can really speak to a lot of these experiences we have as humans, shared experiences, help us feel less alone, which is really important to feel like you're part of a community. And I think so many of us are hungry for that sense of belonging and community, belonging to a place, whether you're Native or non-Native. And I think art can really help people connect in really powerful and nuanced ways.
Yeah, art programs have been cut from so many schools.
Mm-hmm.
How do you convince administrators and parents that the arts are just as important and say as important as math or science in today's world?
Man, I've struggled with that a lot as being parts of an arts organization. So I'm a chair of a board of Native Arts and Cultures Foundation, and lots of been involved in a lot of arts, educational, supporting art, Native artists, and so on. And that's always the trick. I think about that. It's like, well, maybe if we say that if you took out what is art, and then you start saying, okay, well, what did it take to make this? What kind of there is an art to it. What about this? What about the clothes you're wearing? If you could break it down and show everyone how much art, even the plants and the different shapes and how much it informs who we are. If we could break that down, that's on my list to do at some point, it might give people who don't see that a greater appreciation of how much their world is impacted, even by the art of the environmental place we live in. It's incredibly, profoundly artistic, like the shells and the shapes of ferns and all kinds of plants. And that's what I like about your illustrations in this book, Remember, is that you see those different configurations of art, of the artistry of creatures and plants and so on, and you see how it's all moving together. And that's what's so beautiful about your art in Remember.
I always like to put the A in STEM and make it STEAM, because I feel like I didn't get into science until I started looking at it like art. It's all an exploration of curiosity. Maybe you're breaking down the components of a cell, maybe you're breaking down the idea of blue. So for me, I feel like arts and sciences should be hand in hand. So thank you guys so much for coming to the South by Southwest EDU studio. Your works are beautiful. I look forward to that book coming out on March 21st.
Correct.
Excellent. So thank you, Joy. Thank you, Michaela, for coming to the studio. And thank you guys for being here and watching, tuning in. Don't forget, you can watch all of our studio interviews on the South by Southwest EDU TV app and on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@South by Southwest EDU. I'm your host, Kari Byron. Please stay tuned for a whole lot more from the South by Southwest EDU studio.